The Speedy World. I'm SYED SHABAHAT and you're watching Fault Lines. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are aware that the devastating spell of rain during the last week of August has brought miseries and unfolded a catastrophe of unprecedented scale in the entire of the country. The province of Balochistan has become a very special victim of this unprecedented crisis. And due to these rains, the infrastructure of the province has been devastated. According to the initial estimate, the Provincial Disaster Management Authority, more than 24,000, I repeat, houses have been collapsed. More than 500,000 animals across the Pakistan have lost their lives, out of which more than 200,000 were from this province. Cattle farming is one of the major occupations of this province. Today we are going to cover the devastation in and around the city of Quetta to have an idea what miseries this catastrophe has brought to the city of Quetta. And we'll try to cover some more areas in the programs to come. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have started moving forward in different parts of Quetta that were blocked so far, we are now reaching the areas that remain unaccessed during first few days. And I'm now joined by Assistant Commissioner Sadr Nakibullah Kakar, who is here with us on his official visit and is going to tell us about the scale of devastation in this area. AC Saab, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
You're on the site visit, and tell us about the topography and the geography of this area and what exactly has happened here.
Thanks for having me. Firstly, I will let you know that on 26th of August 2022, the flood badly hit the entire Hanodok. We are going to categorize Hana into three parts: the lower part, the middle, and the upper one. All of these parts have severely been hit by the flood. The water channel, and specifically all those people who are living on both sides of the water flood channel. Around 45,000 population of Hana, as per 2017 population census, lives here. Out of which 350 houses have completely been damaged.
Now, which part of Hana we are right now standing into?
We are here in the central part of Hana, that we call the middle one. This is Kali Taj Muhammad. Here on my right side, just below the mountain, the entire Kali has been hit, and none of the people is living here now. All of them have been evacuated by the district administration and rest of the government departments, and they are living in our tent village.
And AC Saab, this was not accessible for quite some time.
Yes, due to flood, we could not do it. In the very first phase, the flood water didn't allow us to reach or access this area. However, we made an access to this area through Raga that connects through Spin Raga.
And we are also seeing that the roads have been eaten away, have been taken away by the flood, and there was some work in progress as well. So I think the local government has responded pretty prompt to the situation.
Yeah, perhaps. I would just brief you about the situation of the road. The roads and the bridges have completely been washed away. That's the very first flood that crossed through this way. However, the government departments, under the supervision of the district administration, specifically Deputy Commissioner Quetta, and I personally visited all these areas, and now we have restored the access to all of the villages.
And as I can see on my right side, the houses have been taken away. I think this has taken very harsh brunt of the water.
Yeah, perhaps.
So are the areas ahead of this one also accessible, or we are trying to maintain access to these areas as well?
Yes, all of these areas are accessible now, and we got it day before yesterday.
Many organizations, as most of the viewership of this program is from the diplomatic circles and Pakistanis living abroad, most of the people are trying to help out the communities that have been so badly affected by the scale of devastation. What is the proper way to go about it? The non-profit organization, the societies, the civil society organizations, if they want to contribute, how would you advise them to?
The government policy is, firstly, we rescued all of these people. Then we reached to them having the relief items. The third phase would be the rehabilitation phase. All of those organizations, NGOs, or the foundations whatsoever, they should contact the Deputy Commissioner and PDMA, we will allow them to work here in our supervision.
That means without the permission, no any organization should try to make an intervention, because the city government is trying to make sure that not only the help reach to the right people, but also the things are channelized. Thank you very much, AC Saab, for being guest in our program.
Thank you very much.
We'll now go forward to the other areas and would see the scale of devastation there. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we are still standing in Kali Haji Gul Muhammad, and this is a nearby area of the city of Quetta, much closer to Urak. And the water has literally washed away the road. Also, the only bridge that was connecting the two sides of the same village have been washed away. Now, there were a lot of gardens of fruit, which is the mainstay of economy of this very poor village. Not only that, but you can see that with the devastation of water, the houses have either broken or have been entirely washed away. You can also see the debris of the trees. And these trees, you know, this was the time when these trees were going to give fruit and give return of the investment of these poor peasants and farmers that have harvested these plants for the rest of the year. Now, as we move forward in the village, the scale of devastation is literally horrifying. You might not believe that this village was the cradle of their livelihood. It was the place where people were living, and as you can see, it has been entirely washed off. But the flow of the water, that is unprecedented. Now, the scale of devastation in Balochistan is far more than any other area, because of primarily a reason that Balochistan, by the virtue of its geography and its topography, is not designed or is not accustomed with getting such an insane and unprecedented flow of water. And since water has flown to this area in a volume that has never been recorded in the recorded history of the hydrology of this province, the scale of devastation this time has surpassed all the previous expectations. As you can see, these trees of apples, as I was mentioning, now this area is very famous for this vegetation, and as well as the apple trees, and the production of apples from this part of the country goes to many other parts of the country. Now, if you're traveling to Quetta or from Quetta to this area these days, you will find many people selling these apples that have fallen down in large volume on dirt cheap prices. Another thing that I was told by the locals is that the place was evacuated in time, and despite the devastation that you're seeing, there was no life losses recorded in this area. Also, the people from the local community are trying to help themselves out in these odds. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are seeing this devastation of large scale, I am now joined by a local from this area. His name is SHARUKH, and he's going to tell us about the scale of devastation as well as the relief activities that you can clearly see are in progress at the moment. SHARUKH, what has happened precisely in this village?
Actually, it happened on 26th of August, a big flood that came from the area of Walitangi. We were a lot of families there. I think approximately 18 to 20 houses were there. So they were as sleeping as a normal routine. So some messages were sent by the people that a destructive kind of flood was coming from the area of Walitangi. So we started relief activities by ourselves to take out people, children, ladies from the houses. So we were succeeded in this to get them out of the houses. But actually, as the flood reached here at our area, at once in a sight, it was destructed all the houses, and the people, they were just we could not do anything about this flood, but we were just looking at that flood, and all the 18 to 20 houses that was distracted by the flood.
Now, I can also see some relief activities going on. As of now, when we speak, there is some food being distributed. I also saw some relief workers on the main road. They're also working, and local government's team is also there. Tell us about the relief work. Are you helping yourselves out, or you are being helped out by other organizations as well?
So it's been, I think, 6 and 7 days from the flood of 26th August, where we had a lot of people, officials from the government. They reached here, but just only for a photo session. There were 4 to 5 cameramen were there with them. They took photos and made videos from here, and promised us that we will bring a lot of ration, and we will give you relief. But still we have not received anything, but we have received the relief fund from the local people here from Quetta, and some trusts were there. Only the road is cleared by the army. The single road was cleared by the army, and the relief activities you can see in their houses. All we are only our relatives and our local people. They are involving themselves in these activities, but still we have not received any kind of ration. And one thing more, I want to tell to the government officials: they must not keep us only giving only a kind of one parcel of flour and tent. We don't need that. We have all infrastructure has been destroyed by this flood. All the infrastructure, we need protection walls here in Kili Hajigul Mohammad Hanna. If there was a protection wall, so we that it must that we would be in a safe situation. We need protection wall here in Kili Hajigul Mohammad area. We need our houses rebuilt from the base. We have our houses destroyed, all 18 to 20 houses that has been vanished from the base. So they must think about us, that we don't need only a parcel of flour or a tent. So they must bring here. They must bring us here for a kind of infrastructure from the base, so so we can survive there.
Thank you, SHARUKH, for being our guest. Ladies and gentlemen, 710 kilometers of roads have been washed away in the province of Balochistan, and this have denied the access to many places. And we are standing at a dead end of a similar place, where you can see the electric pole has fallen on the road, thereby denying our access any further. And you can also see that the road underneath has been washed away entirely by the brutal flow of the river. Now, this gives birth to many problems. Not only the people who are willing to help cannot reach, but also the necessities of life that were transported by the commercial users, like the markets, like the shopkeepers who are buying stuff from the city and bringing it back to the villages. Their access have also been denied, and thereby increasing and exacerbating the problem of the people of this province. On the proximities of the city of Quetta, this is the area of Kutch More, and this area has received an unprecedented amount of water that it had never seen before. Now, as you can see, the roads have been taken away, washed away by water. And if you see the height of the road, I'm at least standing 4 to 5 feet below. And that is the part of the road that has been entirely eaten away by water. Now, adding into the miseries of Balochistan, and specifically the city of Quetta, there is another problem that is hovering on the head of the people of Quetta even to this date when we are recording this show. And that is the supply of gas, the natural gas supply. The supply of natural gas to the city of Quetta has remained stuck has remained blocked even today. And the real reason behind it is this gas pipeline. A pipeline that was providing gas to the city of Quetta has been breached, and as you can see, the work is still in progress. But the scale of devastation and damages is so immense that it's still taking a lot more time for restoration of gas supply in the area. Now, if you look at the other side, you can clearly see that this is a deserted and barren land. This is not the regular passageway of water. There is a lot of room empty, and all of this ground from here to these hills was occupied by water to such a scale that it came with a force and took away the part of road, and the gas pipeline was breached, as I told you earlier. Now the water has covered all of this field, so vast and so open, and this is something that has not happened in this province ever before. The vastness of this area, you can clearly see there are no rivers, there are no streams of water, there's no passage of water. It's a pure deserted barren land, and all of this land was filled with water with such a harsh volume or with such a harsh force that it has caused destruction of this level. And as of now, when we speak, this area is again completely dried out. An advantage of being on the height. So all the water from this side of the country has passed down to the areas that lie down in the basin. As you can see, there is a lot of activity going on in this area. We are again in the proximities of the city of Quetta. Now, specifically, this is the city of Kuchalak, that is in the suburbs of Quetta. But if you see the scale of devastation, it's again unprecedented. Not only the houses have been razed, as I'll show you later in the footage, but also the roads have been entirely washed away. In fact, they have to keep the foundations of the roads once again from the scratch, as they have been entirely washed out. If you look at the topography of this area, again there are mountains that are hovering and towering this beautiful valley of Kuchalak, and we are standing right underneath these hills. Now all the water that has descended down from these hills has also hit this area, and the water coming from Quetta that has been overflowed from the areas that we showed you earlier has hit this little village very hard. And if you just look what is happening right down there, this shows a very different story. All these houses were of the labor that were working in these brick ovens, and these clay houses have come down. They have devastated entirely. You can see the roofs have collapsed, and all the belonging of these peoples are under the debris at the moment. Now this gives birth to a variety of crises. On one end, we see the devastation of infrastructure of Balochistan that remains feeble as compared to the rest of the country. On the other end, there are communities like the ones you can see at the moment. And these communities are deprived not only of the only shelter that they possessed, but also of the means of their livelihood in most of the cases. Now this gives birth to another problem: scarcity of resources, that is mother of all economic evils. People over here are still wondering if they have to build their houses once again, or have to rebuild their livelihood, or have to invest in the infrastructure, or have to reach out the people in the neighborhood that have been affected by this devastation that is unprecedented in nature. Let's talk to one of the social workers who have worked in this area and see what kind of work have been done so far. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And what's your name?
My name is Hashir Mughal.
Hashir Mughal, tell us about the activities that you had so far in this very particular area where we are standing at the moment.
We almost delivered 30 ration package in this area. We was first in this area to arrive. The ration contain 120 bag of 20 kg of flour 5 kg rice, and
And when exactly did you arrive here, and what was the first sight that you saw?
we exactly arrived almost after 1 day when the road was cleared.
What date was that?
It was I don't remember the exact date, but
27th maybe.
26th or 27th maybe.
All right, maybe somewhere between 26th and 27th.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
yes.
And then what did you see here? What was the sight when you arrived?
It was completely destructed by the water. As you can see, the house is totally destroyed.
Asha, there might not be many organizations that can reach out to the people spread in the vast stretches of Balochistan, because as we can understand, this is a very vast land and the devastation is so vast in nature. It's almost everywhere, as we can see.
Exactly, the roads are the road. The water destroyed. नहीं sir. नहीं. मैं बोलना चाह रहा हूँ कि roads का infrastructure सारा खराब हो गया.
The roads were washed away. The access was very difficult. We tried to. और अगर बीच में कोई लफ्ज़ नहीं आ रहा, उर्दू का एक आध जुमला मार दो.
ठीक है. The road was washed away.
The infrastructure was in bad shape. Once again, Hashir, when you arrived, what was the situation at that moment, and what did you see when you reached at the site?
So the road was washed away by the water, and the situation was very destructive.
Was the water still standing there?
Yes, water is still standing in some areas.
I mean, the day you arrived, was the water standing here at that day?
Yes, water was standing there as well that day. We did some relief activities, as I mentioned before. We give 30 ration of
30 bags of ration, as you said earlier. Let's talk about apart from Quetta, because ladies and gentlemen, let me bring this on record that we, for PTV World, tried our level best to reach out the areas that have received the worst brunt of the crisis. But unfortunately, the road infrastructure, as you might have seen in the initial part of this program, is broken and fractured to an extent that the access of Quetta is disconnected with many nearby adjoining. And ladies and gentlemen, let me bring this on record that it's not only Quetta that has been so adversely impacted or affected by this large-scale devastation. As a matter of fact, the adjoining districts, and particularly the districts that are in the lower altitude, because Quetta understandably is on 5,500 feet above the sea level. It has a natural flow for the water to go down. But then there are districts that naturally receive the amount of water coming from the top and are lower in altitude. And these districts have taken the worst brunt of the crisis. So tell us about the other districts one by one. Let's talk about the other districts that you are aware of have received this devastation and are still we are not able to reach these areas.
Jafrabad is very damaged from this destructive rainfall. Our volunteer network is very strong, and we have worked in Jafrabad. We provided almost 60 bags of rations, and we daily are
providing more every day. But tell us about Jafrabad. How bad is the situation out there, and what is the real problem? Is it still the absence of roads or the absence of an infrastructure still a problem that is stopping a lot of work, a lot of relief work in the area?
The road is completely washed away from Bolan. There is no contact. There is no roads from
Jafrabad to.
There are no roads from Bolan to Jafrabad. No roads from Jafrabad to Bolan. That's why relief work can't be started there as fast.
Yes, and tell us about the other districts. I mean, other than the one you have mentioned, which other districts do you believe are the worst recipient of crisis?
Bela is most affected from the this destructive rainfall. Las Bela is one of the district. There is also no roads, no even people have no shelters. So these are the few districts which have been brutally.
When he talks about the district of Las Bela, let us tell you that this is the southest and the deepest part of the province. Now, province that starts from the collar of these mountains and descends all the way down to the coastal highways or the coast of Makran is actually inclined from north to south. And Las Bela is one of the steepest districts that have received the worst kind of the problem. Now, before he talks any further, let me show you this water once again. This water is standing in this place. This is not a regular or a normal passage of water. Now, what happens is that when water like this is standing in a vicinity where it does not have any natural outflow, what happens right away is that it gives birth to mosquitoes and many other water-borne diseases are spread in such areas. Not only the diseases for human beings, but also for diseases for any animals that have been kept by the people as an alternate or the only source of their livelihood. So the water standing will be another problem. We all the time talk about the government coming out and government coming out to help people or government not coming out to help people. The problem at the moment in Balochistan is that the scale of devastation is so large and so huge in nature that the machinery of the government cannot reach at every corner of the province. And despite the fact, you can see there is some work going on in the background. The government is trying to build the axis of the road of this very small vicinity once again with the main road, but that will be only one end of the problem. The major problem for the people of this area would be these devastated houses, the houses that were cradle of their entire livelihood are now razed to the ground, and it's not possible for these people to inhabit their houses once again. They do not have enough resources to rebuild these houses from the scratch. And if it's not done, what will happen? You can get the answer from your own mind. Let me show you some more parts of the same area so that we can understand what is the scale of the problem in this area. Ladies and gentlemen, as you understand, the language barrier in Balochistan is quite wide. Now, the province at its own has three different major languages, that is Barohi, Balochi and Pashto. We are at the moment standing in a Pashtun part of Balochistan. I would like to interact with the people in their local language and then we'll translate whatever feedback they provide to me. I will translate this to you. Margaresa nama dasta. Nur Mohammed څه شوی د ستا لاسته
خوښ شوی دی
څنګه څه وشو هغه ورځ باندې
ولګېده
دیوال ته باندې وغورځېدو نو ته څونه ډېر پساو وې هغه کې
هغه کې نو ډېر وخت پساو 24 غنټې خو هلته اوبو کې پساو
اوبه کې او بیا څنګه دا ټول څوک رالو تا پسې
سرکار کسان هم راغلي وو ټیکدارانو د ملکانو هم کوشش کړی و ډېر کوشش یې وکړی تقریبا پوره ورځ کوشش وکړي نو بیا د شپې سرکار کسان راغله ویې باسلو
لاس دې اوس مات دی که وګار دی او که څنګه
دغسې مکمل خوښ شوی دی.
What he's telling me is that he was stuck in his house. The time the water came, he was stuck in his house. The walls fell down on him. He remained under the debris for 24 hours. And after 24 hours, the local communities somehow reached him because the access to him was blocked due to excessive amount of water. And now when the water is gone, he is there with his broken arm, with no place to live, with no roof on his head, and with no means of livelihood left to him. Let's talk to another man from this area who's going to tell us about the scale of devastation on the evening of 26th. Ji, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Sestasu se nama da?
Zman Maqsood Khan.
Maqsood Khan se څه شوی د دې ځای کې او د کم تاریخ باندې ټول تباهي شوې ده؟
دا تقریبا 27 تاریخ باندې 26 اور 27 تاریخ مابین کې شپې دا مکمل معلومیږي دا اوبه ما را روانې وې دلته مخامخ کورونه په دا ځای کې دلته لاندې هم کورونه اور 25 یا 30 کسان په دې اوبو په د مابینځ کې پساول No.
What he has told me at the moment is that between the evening of 26th and 27th, the night between 26th and 27th of August, water came all of a sudden. Water was too much in quantity, it was too huge in volume, it was covering from that wall to that end. If my camera can show this width, I believe this will be more than 250 feet of width, with maybe 25 or 30 feet of depth. Now this is the quantity of water that came in their village at the time when they were not prepared. And let me repeat, this is not a normal or a natural passage of water. We are not on bank of any river. There are no rivers in this province. We are not on the bank of any stream. And despite the fact, all of the water came in. No bia singa chalo shuji. Jeta tolo bache raglo na tasu sewko.
منګه اول د ټولو اول لاړو انډیمیا دفتر له حالت ریټن درخواست ورکړي چې باید دلته 30 کسان یا 40 کسان دی هغه پساو دي د دې لپاره د ټیمانو ضرورت دی هغه دغه د خاصه هیڅ ریسپانس نو بیا خپل مدد آپ کې تحت موږ رسیان راوړې پر رسیان باندې مل انسانان راوېسل تقریبا د شپې 12 بجې 12 12:30 بجې پورې د سهار تر د شپې د 12:30 بجې پورې دا خلک تقریبا 24 غنټې چې د اوبو په مابینځ کې پساو په دا کې لیډیز هم ولو بزرګ خلک هم کوچنیان هم د شپې 12:30 بجې دا موږ ریسکیو کړو دا ځای د هغه ټایمه پورې خالي لاست ټایم د انډیمیا دغه پی ډي ایم دغه خلک راغلي او هغه ټایم کې موږ د خلک ګرد راایستلي وو د باندې.
So when it happened, they tried to approach the government offices of PDMA, the Provincial Disaster Management Authority, but the authority was so immensely occupied with so many of applicants coming to them that they could not reach to their rescue very quickly. And what happened as a result, that people like him stayed in the mid of the crisis for another 24 hours, and the water went slightly down, and then these people and some other helped themselves out and pulled the people out of this crisis. Now let me ask one last question. اوس چې تا ټول تباهي چې ختمه شوې ده اوس تاسو څه پرابلمز دي دې ټایم کې؟
اوس خو زموږ دغه پرابلم دی چې دا کم خلک زموږ سره اوسېدل دا تقریبا 35-36 کور دي د دا خلکو فلحال نه د رهایش ځای شته نه د دې راشن دغه سیستم شته دا خلک در په در دي څوک چیرې پراته دي څوک چیرې پراته دي دغه کور سیستم د دې نسته کورونه د دې ګرده مکمله تباه شوي دي نو زموږ فرست دغه خو دا دی چې دا خلکو ته راشن میلاو شي او د دې د رهایش بندوبست وشي.
راشن تاسو ته کله میلاو شوی آخري ټایم؟
موږ ته د ګورنمنټ د خوا څخه بالکل راشن نه دی میلاو شوی دا خلکو ته صرف په 28 تاریخ 29 تاریخ باندې سوشل میډیا ورکرانو د خوا څخه راشن راغلی د 25 ګرانوغه د هغې بعد دلته هېچا معلومات هم نه دی کړی چې دلې انسان شته که نشته که سر.
Since 28th of August, they have not been provided with food. Before 28th August, some organizations have reached them out at their own and have given some ration, but then they have gone further downwards to help out other people who have not been helped out ever since. The other problem that he's identified is the absence of roof for all these people who were inhabiting the village and have now nowhere to live. Ladies and gentlemen, we would have ideally continued this series till the end of the province, which is somewhat 850 kilometers down the road from here. But for now, we are covering the proximities of Quetta. We'll see you next time with some other devastation from another part of the country. And until then, Allah Hafiz.